So welcome everyone to our Baltimore RISE webinar discussion, Getting Down to Business. We're happy to have do this webinar discussion with our partner Collectively. Jamie, did you want to kick us off and do the introductions?
Well, certainly. Thanks again, Vince. Thanks Mindgrub for this partnership with Baltimore RISE. We're really excited about this partnership. For those who don't know, I am Jamye Wooten, the founder of Collectively, where our mission is to be a resource for those that seek to find, fund, and partner for Black social change organizations. And we're really excited about this conversation and be joined by some of our partners, great entrepreneurs that are doing amazing work here in Baltimore City. I mean, one of the things that we did coming out of the pandemic was to launch this Baltimore Black-led Solidarity Fund to make sure that resources hit our community. So we were able to distribute over $300,000 in grants, from $500 to $10,000 in no strings attached grants. And these are some of our entrepreneurs who have really been thriving and working hard during this time. So up first, we're happy to be joined by Kendal Brown of 228 Grant Street Candle Company. Work has been featured on Today's Show. Oprah is doing amazing work. And so welcome, Kendal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So, also, we are joined by Nikia Vaughan at NKV Skin, a skin company here in Baltimore. I'll let her speak a little bit later about the Boost program and the downtown partnership. She's up to some great work and some exciting news. And she also gave me a facial about a few weeks ago, so I hope I'm representing. But Nikia, and we also are joined by Kisha Brown of Justis Connection, a platform that connects the community with lawyers. She's been doing amazing work here in Baltimore for years, and so excited to have Kisha as well. And of course, lastly, again, we're here with our co-host and moderator of today's panel, Vincent Sharp. He is the Chief Business Officer at Mindgrub, the full-service digital agency and software consultancy based here in Baltimore, specializing in web and mobile development, user experience, and interactive design, branding, and digital marketing. Thank you again, Mindgrub. Thank you, Vince, for this opportunity, for this partnership.
Thank you. You know, we're so excited about the partnership, and of course, happy to be here today. And welcome, audience. We're going to kick off the discussion today. I'd like to start with a couple rapid fire questions. And audience, feel free to chime in and share your responses in the chat. We'll also be sharing some of your questions at the end of the webinar. First rapid fire question. What's one word you'd use to describe the current entrepreneurial environment here in Baltimore? Kisha, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I'm going to go with the word hopeful, right? Because I think as an entrepreneur, if you don't have hope on the inside, then you might not last very long. You know, you really do have to have a fire within you that burns regardless of what your outside environment looks like, and really have that hope that drives you to the next day and the next day and the next day. And so I think that there are some opportunities that abound that keep you hopeful, but you're not hopeful because of what others are doing. You're hopeful because of the vision that you have and the faith that you have in that vision that continues to drive you. So I guess my word isn't as much tied to Baltimore as it is to being a Baltimore-based like entrepreneur.
Sure, and an entrepreneur in general, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Nikia, what's your word?
So my word, I thought it was specific to me, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to just say for right now, it's surreal because of the opportunities that I have been afforded in the last month, and some of my fellow Black entrepreneurs who are going on this ride with me currently. And so that's my word, because this has just been a blessing for someone who just started with a small facial oil 3 years ago to getting ready to move into a brick and mortar this fall. So that is my word at this time, surreal.
Kendal.
My word is groundswell. There is a huge groundswell here in Baltimore of entrepreneurs who are really just making things happen. And I'm connected to a group of makers and entrepreneurs who have just experienced phenomenal growth within the last couple of years. And it's just exciting to watch that unfold.
No, certainly. And talk about growth, you know, Jamie, since we've met, you know, you've grown exponentially, and seeing the media and the PR that you're getting, it's fantastic. You know, what's a word that you think of when you think about the current entrepreneurial environment in Baltimore?
I think I would use Kisha's word as well, hopeful. I'm hopeful around this sort of ecosystem that is building, to see sort of dots connected, even this partnership, to be able to partner with grassroots and community-based organizations, with major technology firms that have the resources and talent to come together with community. I'm hopeful about building out the ecosystem again where we are partners and continue to build and support Black-led organizations. Hopeful.
Yep. And I couldn't agree more. And I would say potential. We recently, Mindgrub recently opened an office in Charlotte, and I've been spending a lot of time in the South, in Atlanta and Charlotte, and seeing these environments, these ecosystems that have 20 plus years on Baltimore. My word is potential. I see that we can get there to where some of these markets that have these legacy systems and ecosystems in place. So I would say we have the potential to get there as well. And again, audience, please put your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them as we move along, but also at the end. This is one of my favorite questions to ask entrepreneurs. What motivated or inspired you to start your business? Kendal, why don't we start with you?
Well, I'll be brutally honest. I'm a horrible employee. I don't work well for other people. So I realized that early on, and tried to come up with a plan to be able to, in the words of James Baldwin, go the way my blood beats. And I've found this path. So just knowing that I was wired a little bit differently and needed to be able to follow my creative interests is what led me down this path.
I can relate. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Sure. The reason I started my skincare or NKV Skin was actually a personal one. My daughter and my husband both suffer from sickle cell disease. Well, they don't suffer, they live vibrantly. So they both have sickle cell disease, and my daughter was attending Baltimore City Public Schools, and we noticed that she probably just needed a little more gentle care with an environment with, a nurse that was more familiar with sickle cell, and she got ill while she was attending school. So I needed to come up with some residual income, and my family and friends used to always ask me, how did I keep my skin looking so good or youthful after the age of 40? So, I was letting them know about the natural skincare products that I was using or making myself, and I started giving them away. And then I bottled up about 50 of my oils. I made a little free website, and they sold out. And I said, oh my goodness. And this was something that was happening. And so again, the reason why was for my daughter, so that we could help with her educational expenses. And it just took off, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Love that.
Awesome.
I'll share, Vince, that for me, I was at a transitional point in my life where my last employer and I didn't, shout out to Kendal, right? Didn't see eye to eye. And I kept having this recurring experience where people would ask me, I felt like from the minute I finished or started even law school, asking for a lawyer referral. And just because they knew I was a lawyer. And it was this process where I would text a bunch of people, I would email a bunch of people, and I just over and over and over, literally throughout the years. And then when I had this opportunity to sort of transition, I felt like I had my own aha moment, right? As I was sort of leaving this employer, and I was like, I'm just going to build something myself, right? I want to use my time and talent towards my own vision and not someone else's. And address what I find is important, and not convince somebody else about the importance of advocacy and empowering Black communities, and to be able to chart that path myself.
Jamie, did you want to chime in?
Sure. I mean, we launched collectively in 2019, but sort of the backstory was after the murder of Freddie Gray in 2015, I co-founded Baltimore United for Change. And during that time, we created the Skills Bank as sort of an on-ramp for folks who weren't necessarily on the ground, but wanted to connect. And we had over 260 individuals and organizations join the Skills Bank. We sort of used it internally as a coalition. And the goal was collectively was how could we make a more faith-forward platform to cast a broader net to all Black-led organizations and to mobilize resources. One of the things we heard from foundations at that time that they didn't know who was on the ground, who was serving in community. So our first phase was to create this asset map directory that shows Black-led organizations based on area of focus and neighborhood, but also the map for us. You know, I think often we work in silos. I always say fragmentation leads to duplication, duplication leads to waste of resources, our time, talent, and treasure. So hopefully the map and directory provides us the ability to do our own due diligence before we step out and launch a new organizations. Maybe there's other folks we can collaborate and partner with. And most recently, I've just been thinking about my dad, who was an entrepreneur, dropped out of school at 8th grade because he had to go to work. In Baltimore, he was the oldest, but went on to open 5 dry cleaners and several nightclubs in the city, but had to bootstrap it. And so access to capital, resources. I also lost my dad at 56. I lost my sister, another entrepreneur who opened 2 pizza delivery stores in Baltimore. I lost her at 53. So I think about resiliency. I think about the way in which we bootstrap, but I also think about health and the way in which when we're disinvested, the impact that has on our lives.
No, for sure. Next question. What skills have you found to be most useful as you've grown your business? And, you know, we could be talking hard skills like accounting, marketing, or soft skills like compassion, time management. You know, I've always encouraged young Black entrepreneurs from the jump, find a banker, find an accountant, find a lawyer from Jump Street and start those relationships because they will pay off down the road. Kisha, what are some of those things, either hard or soft skills?
Look, I feel like I am like the master of none, right? Like that sometimes I'm like, oh Lord, I tell folks I'm like the CEO and the janitor all at the same time, right? And so I would say I probably have gotten more soft skills, right? My hard skills, I still don't know enough about marketing and social media. I sent out a story about this discussion beforehand and I was like, all right, Kisha, here we go. We're gonna do it. Let's do it. So it's still a thing, certain things, but you know, you have to pick up a lot of things that you're uncomfortable with. So there's a lot of things that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. I don't feel like I'm a master at, but I have to do them nonetheless, right? And so I've gained some, even my friends, they congratulate me because I think they're just trying to be nice, that I am doing more on social media, which I'm very like intimidated by. I just don't understand it. I can't find anything or anybody. Don't text me on social media. I will not respond right away. But that's why you get a team, right? And so when you talk about like, even soft skills, it's having patience too and giving yourself grace. And that takes practice because it's very easy to just say that. But at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, when you're grinding day in and day out and you are trying to do a lot of things that are challenging or uncomfortable because they're new or it's not your forte, you really do have to give yourself that grace and have patience with the imperfections and the and just the development of these different skills, at least enough to be somewhat proficient, and then be able to know when to pass that off to somebody else who is the true master of that skill set.
Now, I've definitely noticed your social media game. You've upped the ante lately. I've definitely noticed. Kendal, what are some of those skills?
So prior to this work, I worked in higher education. I worked for graduate level theological seminaries for about 10 years. And most of them, I worked for 3 seminaries and all of them were small seminaries where we were doing not only admissions, but we were doing the marketing for the admissions department. We were putting together the ads. I also started a program for Black and Brown queer seminarians. So I built that from the ground and had to market that and recruit for that. So I had a background in a lot of marketing and branding, and that definitely assisted in helping to put together what was needed to make this vision happen. So having some experience in those areas definitely put me a couple steps forward from other brands who are trying to enter this market. So,
Nikia, Jamie, any skills you found most useful that you want to chime in on?
Sure. So the skill that I have learned since becoming an entrepreneur, especially with this program that I am now with, is financial literacy. Prior to me opening a small business, I had no financial literacy growing up. I didn't know about capital. I didn't know about cost of goods. I didn't know about profit and loss, any of those things. I was just had some facial oil and just made a website. And I now know that you need some financial literacy so that you can be successful. And with the help of the program Boost, I, now have accountants, I have help, but, I was also taught by my business mentor to always have your eyes on your own finances so that you will be successful and you know what's going on in the realm of your arena.
Absolutely. And Jamie, especially with a nonprofit, fairly new, what are some of those things?
Relationships. So I'll pull on relationship. My college basketball coach used to say, "Be quick, but don't hurry." So I think it's important that we understand the importance of now, but also taking the time to build type of relationships we need. And sort of social network theory is this idea around weak ties and strong ties. And so sort of like strong ties is where, we know each other, we talk to each other all the time, and we sort of exhaust those opportunities. But it's in weak ties where you develop new opportunities. And so I think it's important, in particular as entrepreneurs, that you put yourself in new environments, not just ones that you're comfortable with. I'm currently here in London, been here for 3 weeks, building relationships and learning. So I think like developing relationships, and particularly those weak ties, getting off your comfort zone and finding new opportunities.
No, for sure. I think another skill, a soft skill that you have to have in some capacity is resiliency. What has been your biggest challenge or stumbling block so far? And how did you overcome it? Nikia.
So my biggest challenges for me has been trying to learn how to get out of not being able to have tough conversations. I am, growing up, my family has always, taught me to be, who I am. And I'm very open, I'm very passionate. I advocate, for the causes that I believe in. However, my business coaches have told me that everybody is not all people. Some people are not all your people. So I, have overcome that. I understand going into business, especially about to have a retail brick and mortar, that, I'm going to have some clients or some customers that may not always agree, may have some grievances. And I just know that I'm going to have to be upfront and deal with some of those things that come my way. So that's it for me.
No, quote of the day: some people are not all your people. Heard. Kendal, what about you?
So for us, we were blessed with the experience of growing pretty quickly, and with that came all of the struggles of growing quickly, but not having the infrastructure in place. So a lot of those things we had to build as we were going along. So you talked to Vince, I wish you had come along in my early days and talked to me about accountants and lawyers and all of those conversations. Those cans we just kept kicking down the road. And, those things just pile up and pile up. And then in addition to that, we've bootstrapped everything ourselves. So while we were growing really quickly, just didn't have the capital to do some of the things that were presented to us. So some of the things that we had to push pause on and kind of throttle our growth. So that's been a major challenge. But you know, things, I've learned that things happen when they're supposed to happen. So, you know, everything that's happened, everything that we've had to say no to, you know, something better has come back around, or it has come back around again when we could handle it. So, you know, nothing but gratitude for the journey that we've had.
Yeah, heard. Jamye, resiliency. Go.
Yeah, I would say some of the challenges in this fundraising or nonprofit space has been fundraising, access to capital. I think we've been blessed in the last year to have a lot of support from community, but it's an ongoing, constant raising money. So looking for those sort of multi-year commitments and growing partners and individual donors. So excited about the relationships we have, excited about the support we have, but still, you know, fundraising and access to capital is an ongoing challenge.
Oh, for sure. Kisha, did you want to chime in?
As far as resiliency, I would say, well, one, Nikia and Kendal definitely got to get you some lawyers through Justis Connection, because that's why we're here, right? It's all about, especially supporting Black businesses. And that's a big, you know, one of our big missions is to make sure that the business community has that access to lawyers and building those relationships with lawyers, right? Not just coming to us when you have that crisis or challenge, but being able to start the process of connecting with lawyers so that you can develop those relationships. But I would say, you know, for me, one of the things that I've had to be most resilient around is just building my team, right? Like, and having to rely on others for those things that I'm not good at, and juggling all of the, like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, the marketing or the sales, the website or the back end, the front end, right? And so all of these different things that you've got to balance and prioritize, and bringing on people who believe in the vision, right? Who have the skill set that they say they do, right? And being able to put those things together and make it work. And do it on, like Kendal said, on a bootstrap budget, right? And so that's why it's so exciting what Jamye's building, right? Because that access to capital for Black business is so critical. And we already know this, right? We know that that access to capital is what makes a difference. It's not that we have a shortage of good ideas or even people with the skill, right? And the vision, it's that capital that keeps you going. Because at the end of the day, if your rent's not paid and your children aren't eating and you don't actually have the product, then your vision is a dream. And for many people, you know, you don't want it to become that raisin, right? That dries up in the sun. But it's all about that resiliency to push forward and make it happen. And I believe partnerships are the way to do that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, my good buddy, Luke Cooper, you know, serial entrepreneur. I love his content. And recently I saw something he posted, which showed the disparity, of course, on how much Black founders are getting out of the venture capital in Baltimore. Now, like I said, spending a lot of time in Charlotte and Atlanta makes me very hopeful about the potential of what you know, Baltimore can become. But that being said, what methods have you used to raise funding for your business? Nikia, why don't we start with you?
So I have not really gotten to any raising of money at this time. So that's kind of where I really need some help, because I just don't really know where to start. This competition that I just won is actually, again, surreal, because I did win a $50,000 grant, but, you know, with Jamye, I just have to say this really quickly. I rebranded with the collectively stipend that I won. And as you can see here, NKV Skin is really, it really took me far, just from a simple branding board, from, you know, from the stipend that I won. You know, just changing over my branding really has helped me. And so at this time, I am looking into starting a crowdfunding at my space when I sign my lease, to have people come in. So that is the idea that I have, to crowdfund for, you know, people to come into my space, to see my space, to see what I'm going to need, because I know $50,000 may sound like a lot, but I have to build out a spa. Okay. And I know that probably with contractors, my architect, that's not going to take me very far. It'll get me in the door till I get the customer base into NKV Skin Spa. So right now I'm looking at some ways to crowdfund. So yes, I'm just very blessed that collectively put me on the path to get this far. So to get this far, and you know, that's what I'll be doing very soon, some crowdfunding.
Well, let's make sure we definitely connect offline, because through Mindgrub Ventures, we have several venture partners who have funds that are specifically for minority and Black-owned businesses. So I might be able to point you in the right direction. Kendal.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Kendal, what have you done to raise funds for your business?
So pretty much the same. Everything, as I said earlier, has been mostly bootstrapped. Outside of small grants that we've been given, the grant through Collectively and a couple of other organizations, everything else has been either out of my pocket or family contributions from family who've been an incredible support. So everything has been bootstrapped, and we're now positioning ourselves to do some of that work, as Nikia had mentioned, of going after some larger dollars. But we did a small Indiegogo campaign in the beginning. I needed some capital to be able to buy supplies for our first holiday season, so raised less than $5,000 from that. But since that, we haven't done anything. So
for some of the people who aren't familiar with Indiegogo, you want to explain how that works?
It's like Kickstarter. We offered various products for persons who support it at various levels. And I think we raised about $5,000. And that certainly helped with our first holiday season push of being able to buy supplies in the quantities that we needed. So.
Sure. Kisha, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I, like everybody else, was super grateful for my Collectively grant, which not only was, able to provide some money, but also just helped rally my own community, right? And help put a fire under my butt around the energy needed to engage in fundraising, right? So it was competitive, and I made some good partner connections with some of my fellow Black entrepreneurs through the process. And I had friends and family who kicked into gear. And so that was helpful in even energizing other folks around sort of the fundraising needs of me as a Black business owner. I also did a crowdfunding campaign through Fund Black Founders. So Nikia, I'd be happy to share some information about that with you. And I chose them because they are a Black-owned platform. And so I raised about 17,000 in 6 weeks with like a little over 100 backers. And similarly, the Kendal used different rewards as part of that process as well. And Vince, I've done a lot of research in the fundraising, capital raising, and I was very wary of venture capital for a very long time, right? I'd heard horror stories from other entrepreneurs and wanted to really, if I was going to go down that path, go with eyes wide open. And so through time, just of looking at different arms of Justice Connection, because we are a legal tech startup. And so that tech aspect of the business is probably ripe for that more venture capital track. And so really now in a space of exploring different types of investment into the business in order to launch, we plan to launch national by before the end of the year. And in order to really be competitive, we'll need a large infusion.
No, sure. And it's a big leap, right? Once you have to you take that money and you feel the accountability to others, and it's a big leap. Jamye, being a nonprofit, it's a little different. How you go about raising funds and grants and things. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, definitely. We started with crowdfunding. We also have a giving circle, about 60 members currently now, and a giving circle who commit to giving a certain amount annually. I did individual donors, but also want to give a shout out to Black folk in philanthropy. Like I think Majority of our funds have really come from individuals who are sitting in philanthropy, particularly locally, Black folk who see us, who understand the work and say, how can we help and support you? So I definitely want to give a shout out to those who are in philanthropy, navigating that space and also making sure that resources are coming back to community.
Heard. Before we switch over to the Q&A, let's share a few actionable takeaways for our audience. Are there any resources, local or otherwise, that you would recommend to fellow entrepreneurs? Maybe an organization, an online tool, a book. I will say for Maryland entrepreneurs that I've recently gotten to know the new CEO over at TEDCO, Troy, very well, and TEDCO is a great resource, and they have lots of vehicles for minority and Black entrepreneurs. They even have a couple dedicated funds. So I would say if you're just getting started, look at all the possibility. If you're in Baltimore and Maryland, look at all those opportunities through TEDCO is a great place to start. What about you, Kisha?
I would say get plugged into different entrepreneur communities. You know, I come from a legal background, and so I did not know many entrepreneurs when I decided to step out on my own. And you really do need to surround yourself with a community of folks who can appreciate your experience and share in the good times, and somebody to vent to, and also their resources. So, you know, there's a whole different number of listservs that you can sort of get on, and there's a balance to that, because sometimes it can be daunting to hear about what everybody else is doing while you're trying to stay focused. So there is a balance in being too, plugged in with what everybody else is doing in the entrepreneur community. I would also say, when you mentioned books, I recently read The Spirituality of Fundraising, which I thought was good. It's a really quick read. And it was talking about, the art of fundraising is about connecting people to your vision. It's not necessarily asking them for that dollar. I thought that was a good resource to have as well. And I would agree to sign up with different state or local resources, just to get sometimes those emails. And again, it can be an overload of emails, and you got to know when to click on them and when not to. But there are different programs and grants and stuff that pop up all the time. And a lot of these folks don't do a good job of letting real people know about
marketing them.
Yeah, at all. I recently tried to track one down that the state did for MBEs related to COVID. And by the time I finally got in touch with someone over months, they were like, oh, that grant ended June 30th. And I was like, so who got it? Because I never saw anything about this, right? And don't know anybody who's ever heard of this. So it does take a lot of effort. And so sometimes being on those listservs and getting, looking through the newsletter, and you see on the bottom, oh, by the way, there's X, you can learn about some different things. I recently saw the state of Maryland offers a grant for international marketing, interestingly enough, right? So not to market here, getting money, right? But to internationally market, there are some grants to be able to take advantage of. And so, if you're looking to, sell your products across the seas, because hello, this is a global business, right? Kendal, this isn't like you're just trying to sell to people, around the block. That could be a grant to take advantage of, to use to market specifically to, your favorite country that you want to go to, and make sure that they know all about, your product. And it works for services. When I first inquired about it, I got a response that was like, no, this is for products. And I was like, the fine print here says, right? And they finally got back to somebody else, saw the email and said, you're right, it is for services as well. Let's talk offline about how So it's oftentimes where you have to be persistent, I find, and sometimes it's a dead end, and other times you connect with somebody who actually is willing and able to be a further resource to you.
Absolutely. Two things you said are really poignant. I was able to connect some folks and actually make some great connections, for Mindgrub through the World Trade Center Institute, which is right in Baltimore. And, you know, through that organization, they have connections to all these other countries that want to do business or help you get into do business in other countries. We have all these great resources in Baltimore and Maryland, but to find them, you know, they're not marketed very well. So totally heard on that. And then, yes, I also agree that, you know, you have to be able to sell your vision. If you can sell your vision well, the money will start coming in, can start coming in from all types of places you've never imagined. Kendal, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. Two organizations have been good for us in terms of pointing us to resources. The first is Made in Baltimore. The Made in Baltimore program. Andy Cook personally has been an invaluable resource for me, just when I had questions regarding importing, scaling up. There was always someone that he could point me to who would be a great conversation partner. So just pointing us to conversation partners and folks who have, you know, who are a couple steps beyond where we are, that has been a tremendous resource. So number one, Made in Baltimore. And then we just got connected with Innovation Works, which is helping us with our strategic planning and really thinking through our identity as a company that seeks to do good in the community, beyond just writing checks or making donations, but really integrating that into our identity and making sure that it's the core of what we do, and thinking through that so that those commitments can be interspersed through everything that we do, everything that we communicate, everything that we touch. So Innovation Works, they've connected us with CPA, they've connected us with folks who have built out social programming. So really excited about that and what's unfolding with that. So Innovation Works and Made in Baltimore.
No, definitely. You know, you can only be as powerful or grow as good as your network is and as good as you grow your network, right? Nikia, any organization, online tool, or anything that you'd like to share?
Sure. So if you can get connected to the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, I am the first of the many more to come boosts, one of the 5. So they are going to have continuous opportunities. So make sure you get connected with Downtown Partnership of Baltimore. It's a great opportunity. And that's actually how I started. I was, you know, on their email list, and I participated in their virtual workshop that they had. And I continued to get emails, and that's how I found out about the Boost cohort. Also, I'm currently on a listserv for Hello Alice. So I have applied to a lot of grants right now for Black owned, women owned. So just waiting for some callbacks. So if you can get on that listserv. And a book that I just recently read, We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. Because my goal is to get into the millionaire status. But right now, you know, I'm trying to be a 6-figure esthetician. So that's a great read. And then also, I just want to say that my NKV Skin mission is wellness, beauty, and community. I thoroughly believe that you should be serving. And it was stated to me as a winner that because of the service that I do for my city, that I was always looked in the top because of all my community service, serving not only just the sickle cell community, but going into schools. I was born and raised in Baltimore. I am your Baltimore girl, and I truly believe in serving. And I believe if you serve your community, that it will all come back to you. So again, that is NKV Skin's mission, to serve. So when you serve and you're a part of your community, and when you are out there, then people will start to notice you, and everything will fall into place as it should be.
Heard. I'm fortunate enough to have one of my first mentors in my father, who was an entrepreneur after he got out of the military. And he served on just about every board and every nonprofit where we grew up. And he always said, you know, the one things I take away from him, he said, if you serve the community that does business with you, the business will take care of itself. So heard. Jamye, organization online tool?
Yeah, organizations, I'll echo Kendal as well. I think Jay's doing great work over there. Innovation Works. We went through that program. I think he's doing a great job of sort of modeling business models and bringing support networks. So shout out to Jay. Innovation Works. Talked to Fagan Harris recently at B Corp as we're looking out at building out our team and staffing, working with Baltimore Port around that as well. Also give a shout out to Terrence over at Terra Cafe, who started Terra Loft Consulting. So he's working to help Black-owned business own the bricks and make sure they own the space where they are. So give a shout out to Terrence. Also went through Social Innovation Lab at Johns Hopkins University. So they have a great program there. And also a shout out to, I think he's doing amazing work with the chamber, but just all around in community. Will Holmes is doing amazing work.
Awesome.
Oh, can I say something really quickly? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I would be remiss if I did not shout out Terrence, Chef Terrence. He is one of my business coaches. Terra Love Consulting. Thanks, Jamie. Oh my goodness. So yes, Chef Terrence has been a great mentor to me in my current opportunity. So blame my mind and not my heart.
Awesome. So I'm being conscious of the time. We have time for just one more question. So what's the best piece of entrepreneurial advice you've ever received, or one thing that you wish you knew more about when you were getting started? Why don't we start with you, Kisha?
So I had a conversation with a tech entrepreneur early on in Baltimore, and he advised me not to build out my system based on my initial vision. He said, do it manually, by scratch, doing the connections on your own for at least 6 months. And I remember when he told me that, I was like, what? Like, I'm gonna do what for 6 months? And it was great advice. He was like, you wanna know what you're telling your coder to do, what your back end is gonna need to look like based off of your experience. So for those who are, especially in the tech world, being able to give yourself the opportunity to really experience the nuts and bolts of what you want your technology to do before dropping $100,000 to build out that tech software.
It's advice we give to all the startups we work with. Jamie, how about you?
Well, I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, so we just, you just do it. You go with your passion, your heart. Again, I wish we had some of your advice earlier as well, the accounting, the legal, all the things that you need to be successful. But I think, as you said earlier, you're serving the community. If you're doing what's right, the community will wrap themselves around you as well. And so say start with what you know, start with your heart and go forward.
Kendal, what's the best piece of entrepreneurial advice you ever received?
There's riches in niches. So finding that unbeaten path and making a space for yourself in places where there's not an overrepresentation. So we're a candle brand that's kind of aiming at the mid-market customer. And there aren't a lot of folks, out there who are doing that as, artisanal Black brands. So we've been fortunate to be able to build upon that as our core identity.
Heard. Nikia?
The best piece of advice that I've gotten is to know your craft. Becoming an esthetician and having my own skincare line. There are many other estheticians here in Baltimore that anyone can go and see. And I am spanking brand new, just becoming licensed just in June. And I know skincare though. So I have to be very well versed on what I am doing, because my clients or customers or clients to be can choose anyone. So my business coach, said to know your craft, know what you're doing, know what you are providing in services, and be very, very well versed in that. And that has really taken me very far so far.
No, or there's true credence to the 10,000 hours concept, right?
Yeah.
Know your craft. You must be an expert. We are going to now transition to the Q&A. I think we can all agree This was an excellent conversation and some great advice for our audience. Thank you, Kisha, Kendal, Nikia, Jamye, for sharing your wisdom with us. We're gonna see if we have some questions here from the audience that have been put in the chat. And let's see what we have here. So, first question from the audience. What has been your most rewarding moment as an entrepreneur so far? I'll let anybody jump in there.
Well, I'll start. Winning this competition, the Boost cohort for Downtown Partnership of Baltimore has been the most rewarding as far as business is concerned. Again, as a new business going from straight online to getting ready to have a brick and mortar in downtown Baltimore has just been, again, surreal. So that has been great. Now, personally, you know, me being able to every quarter before all of this, every quarter NKV Scan makes a donation to the sickle cell community. So that is where my heart is, advocacy. And so that's it for me.
Anyone else? Your most rewarding moment as an entrepreneur so far?
So these are kind of moments of 2020, just amazing visibility that we couldn't have imagined. We were featured on the Today Show. We were featured on ABC World News. We made Oprah's shortlist for her favorite holiday things. And I mean, all of those things just happened, just boom, boom, boom last year. Featured in The Strategist, Cosmo magazine, just an incredible year of visibility for us.
Awesome.
So awesome.
Very. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So being conscious of the time, I wanted to get to this question because it's a really good one. It's a two-part question. And we can put this one in the bucket of, you know, when you walk in a room, do you look at the other Black folks in the room? I think that's a yes on all of our parts. So the question is, do you find yourself code switching in your interactions with non-white associates? And the second part of the question is, do you feel any added pressure as an entrepreneur to be successful because of your race and or gender? Anybody want to jump in?
So
I'll jump in from the foundation side. I'm sorry, Kisha, you want to go, Kisha?
Go ahead.
We have to honor the person who asked that question by answering.
Okay. So I always say, my saying from a funding standpoint is partnership, not paternalism. So that's what I say. Walking into the door, we're looking for partners. And so there's no switching. Like we, you know, at this point in my age, we're going to do it the way we've been doing it. And we're just looking for partners. It's more healthier that way. And so I say, stay true to your mission, stay true to your purpose. And at the end of the day, you know, I always say, we hear foundations are risk averse. I say the community, we're risk averse too. Like we got to go back to community and be transparent and be accountable. So I say, stay true to your mission and who you are.
That's right.
Awesome.
I was just gonna say, I don't know. I don't code switch, and I stay Black on both sides all day, 24/7. It's all about, for me, educating and empowering Black people and uplifting. I believe, as a lawyer, I'm very passionate around increasing access to justice for especially our community. And that justice sometimes looks like having a will. It looks like business succession planning. It looks like having a solid criminal defense, and having someone who is culturally competent to represent you based on your unique posture as a Black person in this country. And so I'm very clear about that mission to support Black people in the law. And I believe having more access to Black lawyers is critical in that vision, right? And so Black people are only 5% of the legal industry. You know, sometimes we think, oh, there's tons of Black lawyers and they're out here balling. And right, the reality is that there aren't that many. We're only 1.97% of partners at large law firms. So any Black partner, you know, that's it, right? They are not the plethora. And so This is about shifting the paradigm for me about what the legal industry looks like, how Black people get to participate in it and claim justice for their own. And so I believe it's important for me to show up very clear in that vision and not water that down based on what I think somebody else's comfortability is or isn't.
Heard. You know, I always say that, is there pressure, you know, to succeed as a Black male? Of course, but the pressure comes from wanting to honor my family, the people who support me, and all the, I'm only a, you know, I always like to say I'm only the result of all the people and time that was put into me by others. So the pressure comes from wanting to honor them, and my family and in my own personal pride. And that's how it should be. And, you know, I'm so happy to see the younger entrepreneurs not having that same pressure. Because I can't say that always, of course. I don't think any of us at my age, early in my career, that there was definite pressure there. But it's glad to see some of those things changing. It's good to see.
I can relate to that, Vince. I can relate to that. I think
Yeah.
Every role that I've ever had, and I'm sure for others as well, you know that you are representing to a certain degree. And especially when I was director of civil rights in Baltimore, I felt that probably the most then, that Black people were expecting a lot, and that I wanted to honor the work that all the people who did it without a title and did it without any fanfare, right? And honor that I'm just in this position to hopefully to further their own work in a way that honors that.
Exactly. So somebody did ask if these resources, all the resources mentioned, will be available with the recording. Absolutely. We will have a list of all the resources we've discussed along with this, and it'll be posted in the coming days. We're almost at time. So does anybody have any burning things they'd like to say, any shout outs, any upcoming cool things you're doing with our last couple minutes? I mean, Jamie, you're in London. I mean, you could send me a ticket. That would be nice.
When I get back, we will launch on August the 4th to 6th. We have the Baltimore Black Business Quest. So it's a scavenger hunt where we'll be giving prizes out as folks will go around and find support businesses in Baltimore for 3 days. And that will end on August the 6th with our day of giving, a 24-hour crowdfunding to support Black-led organizations. We already have $50,000 in prizes. So excited. If you want to support Black-led organizations, support them on August the 6th.
So
WeGiveBlack.com is the website.
Awesome. I definitely want to shout out my good lifelong family friend, Ajam Ali, whose documentary, Walking While Black, Love is the Answer, and LMS, Learning Management System platform, will be launching soon, but they just were accepted and put on all of the streaming platforms. So I highly recommend that documentary, Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. But the content from that documentary is now being put into a DEI learning management system that a lot of enterprise companies are using. It's been a lot of years of blood, sweat, and tears for AJ Ali. So I just wanted to shout him out. It's very cool, and we're possibly working together through Mindgrub Ventures to build out his learning management system that'll be online. So shout out to AJ Ali. Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. You should definitely check it out. Anybody else? Anything last?
Yeah, I want to just say thank you so much to Jamie and Collectively and to Mindgrub for this forum. Now I see I have 2 new connections that I need to connect with, Kendal and Kisha. And so this opportunity is amazing, and I thank you all.
Ditto. It's great to be here and to definitely follow up with Vince and Kendal and Nikia. And, you know, we plan on going national before the end of the year. And so check us out at justisconnection.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And yep, go ahead, Kendal.
Yeah, the same. Just honored to be a part of this panel and really looking forward to building these new connections and having great conversations regarding what we're doing.
Likewise, look forward to getting to know everybody better. Thank you all. This was a great discussion. I think we had some amazing content. So thank you, everybody.